Why not? That's great to remember.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I just forwarded you that.
Thank you, David, for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. I think, are you there or did I miss count?
Joe's here and I got
Okay.
Are you the maestro? So I don't have to do it. Are you running the video and everything? Hopefully. Okay. So they don't see it. People won't be able to hear it. Everything's quiet. Make sure John knows that. Let everybody know.
Right. This one right now isn't doing anything. So that was mine.
Test.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
I like the tables better when you can spread out a little bit more, you know? Yeah. Check.
Yeah, so it's one of those, like, it should pick you up decently well, but if you don't hear yourself in the speaker, you don't want to be closer doing anything, right? And none of that, but like, you can. You'll be right next to Jesus.
Yep. Yep. I'll do that.
The speaker's on, it's one speaker.
Perfect.
Are these the handouts for tonight? I believe so. Oh, gosh. It's like a lot going on over here.
Thank you.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Pretty good. How about you?
I didn't, but that's okay. I've always had issues with
We're okay. Two board members not here, but if they were all here, we would be short. What am I missing?
The students out there.
Is there anything I can do to help you?
If I look at
We are mic'd up. There's no hiding our voices this time, so. It feels like a sound studio, like when you're gonna go and cut a record. Yeah, not that I've never ever done that before, just in theory. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, my computer won't be charged long enough to bring here.
Oh, is Trevor home? Is Trevor home for the? Oh, good. He just came home for a short time then. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. You said that. I was like, oh, I wonder if they were like, the semester was already over and they were doing the rest remote. Or... February, whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
she like grabs me with no mask on. She's like 95 years old. I'll hug her.
That's right, yeah.
Man, oh man.
Yep.
Mr. Stanley, how's it going? Pretty good.
Three, four.
Joe, did you get a copy of the schedule, the
did.
proposed schedule? Okay. just wanna make sure.
The schedule of topics, board topics?
Yeah, and then just kind of gives out the budget timelines as well, just to kind of get that on everybody's radar.
Yeah, that's very good. Good to have. Remember regular budget processes? That was cool. Back when we had,
Looks great for 95 too, holy smokes. Bodes well for you.
okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. Those of you who are willing and able, please stand for the pledge. Thank you all for coming. We have no scheduled audiences to the public or need for comment on items not on the agenda, so we'll move into the report of the secretary. We have a backlog of 2 sets of minutes to vote on. It has been past practice of this board only to vote when there's a quorum of those who were present at that meeting. But apparently council has been checked with, and that's not, while it's common practice, it's not the law. So we are in fact allowed, because we have a quorum of the board here, to vote on each of these sets of minutes. So I'd like to proceed and go ahead and do that. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the September 2nd meeting?
I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020.
Paul Stanley, thank you, sir. Any questions, comments?
Elaine, I had given you my comments already on that overall meeting.
Usually I read through them online. So I don't
There's a great deal of information in this set of minutes.
I read that through that one,
Yeah.
because I wasn't there, I read that one pretty carefully, but I was focusing on the information of the
Mm-hmm.
grammar for writing that.
I don't remember seeing any major errors, yeah. In that case, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you. And may I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 16th meeting? Thank you. Same question. Anybody see anything that needs fixing?
So I had volunteered to delete salaries in advance, and I didn't this time because I didn't know the answer to that question, and so I just
Right.
assumed it was gonna be held off, so I apologize.
I did go through them. I don't remember seeing any major errors.
But I read them online, I think I don't pick up on
Read for content rather than.
Yeah,
you know,
and these were,
context.
once again, content-rich.
Yeah.
so I think I was focused more on that.
Okay, in that case, why don't we go ahead and vote? All in favor, please? That's 4-0. Thank you. Good. In the report of the chair, the next town officials meeting is scheduled for October 14th. That's next Wednesday. It'll be a Zoom meeting. And I believe the details have been sent out for anybody who's interested. And secondly, we as yet still do not have registration information on the MSMA Fall Conference, which is scheduled for October 30th and 31st. It will be online. You're nodding because you agree with me, or because you?
No, you're right.
Okay, yeah,
It's-
so we have
we're
yet-
waiting patiently for,
So,
yeah.
once we have that information.
We keep
we'll
seeing
make sure-
MMA, and I think, oh, this is it. Then I'm like, oh, no, it's not. We're missing an S in there,
Yep,
so,
yep, yep.
yeah. I think they're trying to get speakers together on topics that are
Right.
relevant.
So as soon as we have that registration information, we'll make that available to the board. And that's the report of the chair. Over to you, John.
Perfect. The first thing I just wanted to review, I asked Ryan just to quickly kind of look at our October 1st enrollment, and just be mindful that our October 1st enrollment is what we use or the state uses as part of the formula when they calculate subsidy. That official number is not due till the 15th of October, but this will kind of give you a sense of where we're at. So we had some settling over the last time that we met. So Ryan, just going to quickly share with you kind of where we are enrollment-wise.
So again, as Mr. Tevers pointed out, Rebecca Williams, our data specialist, is still pouring through this. She has to go through and put in all the new enrollments and make sure all the students that are not coming to school are taken off. As of right now, we are +1 from the data that I shared with you. I think it was 2 board meetings ago, or it might have been the last board meeting. So it was 2,195 students in that meeting, and we're at 2,196 students. We're still significantly down from where we were last year. We were about 2,225 students, so there is a significant drop. But as I mentioned at our last meeting, there is some talk at the state about ignoring this year's enrollment numbers and using like a 2-year, going back 2 years and using the prior year enrollment. So until we hear more on that, I can give you an update when we hear more.
Thanks, Ryan. The next topic is the remote academy class size. This has kind of come up in a couple places, and I kind of want to go back in time, if we may. And so when we met at the beginning of August and we presented our plan, part of that plan inherently had us violating the school board class size policy. And when I say that, it means that we would need to come to the board for a vote to go outside of that policy. So typically, if a policy, and I gave a copy of everybody, and there's one in the front as well. But you have the ability to go one above or one below the class size policy without coming to the board for approval or for just stating about what's going to happen. And so in hindsight, probably should have made that an official motion when we approved the plan. Inherently, I think we all knew what we were doing, but just as a matter of process, something that I'll be mindful of going forward. And so when we kind of created the remote academy, I think when we have this conversation, it's really important to remember the framework of what we were trying to do. And so at that time and at this time, we had to prioritize what was most important. And what we said was most important was creating a safe environment for our students. And so in order to do that, we took the CDC recommendations, which was 3 to 6 feet of keeping the students that distance apart. And we said, you know what, we're going to be on the safe side, and we're going to make sure that we're able to hold that up. And so we said we wanted our desks 6 feet or greater apart. And the question always was, why was that the case? Well, that was the case because if we did the 6 feet or greater, it allowed us to be able to keep that 3 feet minimum as kids kind of circulated in the classroom. It's kind of the ebb and flow of a student needing to go to the restroom during the class, or kind of the movement that happens naturally in the class. So we felt like that was really important. Doing that, there was 2 limiting factors. The first, obviously, is class, the physical size of the classroom. And so some classrooms are larger than others, and therefore, inherently, some teachers are going to have more in their class than others. So there's some classrooms at Elliott in the older section where they can fit 11 desks pretty comfortably. And there's a classroom in the newer section where, 9 is really, that's the capacity when we kind of have this mindset. So we start building the puzzle with those type of parameters. And so safety was first. We also wanted to provide an alternative for parents who were concerned about bringing their students back to school before there was a vaccine. And so we did some work with that with the community and said, here's a survey, how many people basically, if there wasn't a vaccine, or would feel more comfortable not having a child come back to school in person until a vaccine was found. And so that was about 17% roughly. And it fluctuated. It was a little bit more at the elementary school, and it was a little bit lower at the high school, middle school level. So we then said, hey, look, the plan's been approved. We're asking people to make a commitment from now until January. And so when we did that, those numbers didn't hold as true as we would have liked to have hoped across the board. And so, for example, at the middle school, again, 17% was roughly the numbers that we got back, and we got a high rate of return, remember, from our surveys. That 17% really, morphed into 25%, which is a large number. And so the question quickly became, what are we going to use for the parameters of how big a remote academy can be? Because that's a fair concern to have. Maine School Management does not have a recommendation on class size numbers for remote academy. I think this is all new for everybody, and so we kind of fall back on our former policy. And it gives a range of, from kindergarten to first grade, 18 is the cap, second grade, 22 is the cap. And so it's kind of all over the place. So we decided, let's use that as kind of our framework of what we were going to do. And I got to be really clear that nobody right now has it easy. All of our staff are working to full capacity. And so it's really difficult because we're not talking about things being, everything's equal or fair. I mean, we're trying to be equitable, and that's kind of the really important term because things are not always going to be the same. And I go back, and I know I shared it with my notes, but years ago when I was principal of Marshall Middle School, it used to be the purple team did certain things in 8th grade and the white team did other things in 8th grade. And people would always like, why does the 8th grade purple team get to do the baseball unit? And why does the white team get to do the stock market game? And those are always kind of the conversation. So we always had to kind of find those key things where we would tie things together. But we also understood that teachers as an art form to teaching, and we wanted to be able to give teachers some flexibility so that it's not just a rote curriculum where, hey, look, this is what 8th grade looks like. There needs to be some of that art form to be a part of it. And so we want to be really careful. And so right now, our class size numbers at our middle school is really we're at capacity. It's basically 125 students for five staff members. Remember that's staff members working 2 days remotely, 2 days remotely on the other end with kind of half the groups, and Wednesday kind of being that remediation support type of day. So it's not a traditional schedule. That being said, the class size numbers are large. But for reference, I'm not sure why the middle school has kind of popped up in this respect, but we have teachers at Marshwood High School, for instance. There's one math teacher that I spoke to recently. They have 116 students, both remote and in person, 4 days a week. So they're with those students. So the numbers aren't outrageous. They're all in the same ballpark. And again, I want to be clear, everyone's working very hard. It's not that some people are getting away with things and others are not. It is hard for people to understand if you look at a 6th grade class and maybe there's 8 students in that class, and you have an online class where there's 18 students, at times that's tricky for people to understand why that is the case. And so the reason for that, obviously, was going back to safety. So I shared with you in my notes some inherent differences between the remote and then the in-person. And so obviously, the remote, some of the class sizes are a little bit larger. Being in person, you don't have the time in the day that the remote teacher has. So you do have lunch duty with students. You do have recess duty. You do have to cover breaks. I mean, there's a lot more. There's fire drills you need to worry about. There's managing masks and social distancing in the classroom. I mean, those are all taxing things that are in addition to just providing instruction. And so I say that just to be mindful that they're not equal. And they can't be equal just because of where we are right now. And we did it because we were in a pandemic. That being said, that doesn't mean we can't try to find ways to improve. And so, for instance, at the elementary schools, 1st grade is the only class size that's above the policy. So I believe there's a graph that Ryan created here. Everybody has a copy of. That just talks about the number of students on the first page and then the number of teachers in each one of the remote learning academies and the teachers that are assigned to that. And then the second page kind of gives you the number of students that are involved, and the red line kind of gives you that class size policy +1. So if it's at Marshall Middle School, the maximum class size is 25, and +1 puts us at 26. So that's where that red line represents that 1st grade. 18 is kind of that top of the policy, so 19 is kind of where that line is, just so everybody sees it. And obviously, it is no one's intention that we want to be at the top end of the class size policy. That has never been our goal. We had to go through that three years ago, and that was a really painful time for us all, and we don't want that. I think keep class sizes really small like they are right now. There's a lot of benefit to that relationship building that takes place. But that being said, first grade, you can see that there is an issue. And so I put on the agenda a motion to ask the board to approve my plan to be able to go forward with the class sizes as they are. What are we doing? And so in first grade, for instance, we're going to, first and second grade, excuse me, because second grade, although it's not in violation of the policy, it is a little bit high. I mean, so again, we're talking about what's best thing for kids, not trying to follow a rule that's kind of on paper. So we want to try to find a way to integrate some educational technician help into the classroom, but here's the tricky part. It can't become another thing that the teacher has to manage. And so, like, I don't want us trying to help, hey, here's an extra body to be able to do some breakout groups, to be able to get some specialized instruction. I don't want that to become another management issue for the teacher to add on top of an already busy workload. So we're trying to find that balancing act of how does this all work together. And so we are in the process of doing that. You know, Heidi and I have spent a great deal of time talking about this. We've talked about this with Peter and with Nina and our administrative team. So I feel like we're starting to hit our stride with that. I've personally had about 12 correspondents regarding the remote academies. I have only had one correspondence that was disappointed with the rigor of instruction. And so I had one that was disappointed that it wasn't rigorous enough, and then I had one that was saying it was too difficult, both in the same academy. Other people, I think, were concerned about the numbers and worried about the teachers, as opposed to really about the quality of instruction. Out of all of those emails, I did not get a lot of feedback that they're having a bad experience. And so just to kind of clarify that for people. And I appreciate that people are looking out for our staff, but, you know, I don't think, and I will say it, I don't think that there would be a superintendent that would care more about what their staff was going through than I would. And I believe that that's one of my greatest strengths. You know, I really try to put myself out there and put myself in the position of a citizen or an educator in this district and what I think is the best thing to do. This is not ideal, but at the same time, there's a reason that we did it. And so I think of it like a Jenga puzzle. And we've built this puzzle, and you can't just pull one little piece out and be able to keep the puzzle intact. If you want to tear everything down and then build it back up with different parameters, that's what happens. And so that's where we're caught a little bit. The other thing, which is a reality, is that we have had school districts across the state of Maine, and in southern Maine in particular, that could not open school because they could not find enough teachers. And so, you know, I know the Westbrook had some issues opening. And so how did we avoid that? We avoided that because we got our plan approved early. We posted these positions early, and we were able to find really good people. But there isn't a lot out there right now. And so we have a number of positions right now that are open. So it's not like, hey, if I post something, all of a sudden I'm going to get these great teachers that kind of come out of nowhere to teach, because basically every school has kind of done what we've done as well, is we try to maximize our support. The other thing is, and I'm not saying we couldn't find a way, but there is the fiscal responsibility of where we're at, where we do have some CRF money, but remember that CRF money only pays for 40% of the position. And so if we wanted to add another position, we would have to find 60% of a teacher's salary and benefits. So again, we kind of go back to that $90,000 number was the number we talked about for budgeting purposes. So we would need to find $54,000 someplace within our budget that we've already budgeted someplace else to cut to be able to sponsor that position or to help pay for that position. So there is, even though there's CRF money out there, the way it's structured is we can't just say, hey, look, let's get a teacher for the whole year and not have to worry about it. That's just not the reality. So that's the other part. So at the middle school, similar conversation. Tony has done a fantastic job of working with the team. They've actually customized the schedule a little bit over the last couple of weeks. They're in conversation around how can they maximize things. I think they're starting to hit their stride right now with it all. And they're going to be doing some work to continue to evolve. Middle school is a little bit different situation. Again, you go back to, there are 5 teachers in the middle school academy. So those 125 students, divide that in half, because remember, 75 come Monday, Tuesday, 75 come Thursday, Friday. Those 75 students are with 5 teachers at all points during the day. So if you add another teacher to that mix, you're still asking those 5 teachers to have 75 students. You've just added another block in the day. You're not pulling students away from those teachers. So it's not as simple as saying, hey, look, if we hired an additional teacher, that would keep the ratios down. Sure, on paper, it would keep the ratios down, but it doesn't solve the class size issue. And so the only way that, that I foresee that we could do that is if we said, we're going to hire 2 6th grade teachers. One 6th grade teacher would teach English language arts and social studies, let's say, and then one would teach math and science, and we would kind of create a mini team where we would take X number of students and kind of pull them out of the remote academy and put them in 6th grade. Now, money is one issue, why that's, we've got to be mindful of that. Two is, could we find 2 teachers that would be qualified? Because you don't want to bring in people who aren't qualified. We want the best for our students, and we really feel good about what we've done so far, but I am concerned that we have a number of jobs that we can't fill right now. And then third would be, how do we then take 125 kids that have worked with these 5 teachers and say, hey, I'm going to take 40 of you, and I'm going to pull you out of that. And so the relationships that you've built, what does that look like? I don't think we're going to get 40 people that are going to say, hey, we'd love to move right now. And so there is some disruption to that. And so I think the way we've tried to accommodate that is to be able to how do we talk to the staff and be able to work the schedule a little bit more and develop it. So sorry to be so long-winded about it, but this is a very, very difficult conversation. It's not as simple as, if we just got another teacher. It's not a lack of we didn't allocate resources properly. That's not the issue. The issue is that we, for better or for worse, we put safety first. We didn't put, the class size of the remote academy as one of our top issues, and I did that 100%. But I still feel like that was the right decision. And so I've kind of put forward a motion tonight to be able to say, look, we are over in first grade in both Central School and Elliott. We do have, just for clarity, we do have a student from Elliott taking online classes in the remote academy with the Central School staff. It doesn't really matter because it's remote. But again, just trying to maximize our resources to be able to balance things out. The argument that's really hard is that people ask the question, even if you're following the class size policy, and I have 20 students in my, so let's just say a first grade, a remote first grade, and there's only 10 in an in-person first grade. Those are different experiences, and they are, and that comes back to the equity. We're trying to be equitable. I cannot make it equal when we are trying, like safety again. That was what kind of prompted the conversation. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to give the facts as to where we were. I certainly take accountability that there are some class sizes over. I don't see how we could change when we made the plan. I don't.
How are the remote teachers feeling about it? This is 10 or 12 parent input. How are the teachers actually feeling about it?
I think the teachers, the feedback that I've gotten, and I think Tony more so has heard it as well. I think initially, it was overwhelming. I think just the idea of teaching in a pandemic remotely, I think was a little bit overwhelming. And we also kind of took the remote instruction we did last year, and we're trying to amp that up a little bit. So it's a different experience. So I think that was a difficult transition. I really feel like, speaking to Tony, even as early as tonight, that people are starting to get more comfortable, and we're trying to find a way to handle things. One of the things that Tony had just mentioned tonight as well, like there has been a couple of people who wanted to go back into the hybrid. And so one of the things that I said, and I said it very clearly, was that early on, if you wanted, if you're in doubt, tell us you want to be in the hybrid, because we would have some space in the remote academy to accommodate that. But we haven't said the opposite. And so if people, are right now saying, look, we've really heard some things, we feel more comfortable about it, we'd like to be able to go into the hybrid. If we have space, I've told all the principals, if there is space, we want to be able to function within that space. We want to accommodate families as much as we can. Here's the bigger problem. So a plan is great, sounds great in August, and then all of a sudden, you have your first case of COVID in a school. And so now people get nervous. And so Tony's had a number of phone calls of people saying, wait a second, we want to go to the remote academy. So on one hand, we've got people in the remote academy saying, wait a second, these class sizes are too big. And then we've got the other side of the equation saying, wait a second, we want to get in the remote academy. And so we've had to say, look, folks, we've asked you to make a commitment. There isn't space in that remote academy. But at the same time, and I just think this is where we're different, is that we try to say, okay, look, there's families who need help right now. They need some support. What can we do to be supportive of that? And so, we didn't just take that for an answer and say, hey, great day, too bad, you made the wrong decision. So we're working on an alternative right now. I'm not sure how we feel about it. We're going to be doing some work on it, but there is an opportunity where there is some online work that we could facilitate with one of our faculty members who is a certified teacher, to be able to provide, it won't be the same, but it would be able to provide curriculum in a way that they could receive it at home, but yet still kind of meet the grade level expectations to be able to go forward. It wouldn't be the remote academy and it wouldn't be the hybrid, but it would be more computer-based, working with a teacher. And so we're investigating that right now. But that's kind of the other part of this conundrum, as as we get closer to the, cold and flu season, as people start to become more aware, like, wait a second, this is the reality. It is tricky, and I think one of the things that people struggle with COVID-19 in general is that even though we're keeping +6 feet, everybody's wearing a mask, we're keeping the windows open, we have the ventilation systems. If there's an outbreak, there's still that close contact rule, which is designed to keep people safe. So what it's basically saying is, one person has been affected, and anybody who we think is even close, we're going to take those people and we're going to have them in quarantine for 2 weeks. No matter what, if we had the masks on, whether we were 6 feet, whether we were 3 feet. And that's not our rule, that's the CDC's rule, but I think that's a little bit difficult sometimes for people to understand that, hey, wait a second, we're doing all these things, and in the end, if there's someone who's tests positive, it doesn't mean anything. Well, it does mean something because, I'm really proud of the fact that, that we had a situation, and I think our school came through it on the other end at the middle school. I thought they did a fantastic job, and so it was hard, though, but it's the reality of when we deal with this pandemic right now. So, again, I'm sorry if I go on too long about it, but any questions or thoughts, I'd be more than happy to.
I just want to make sure that we're clear that when this comes up in new business as a motion, that we're voting to approve specifically the class size aspect of the plan that is currently in place.
In first grade, and we're also asking to formally, I know it's a little bit late in the game, but we are also making people aware that we are formally approving the fact that our class sizes are below the class size minimum as well. And so we have those smaller classes. And I think we did that when we voted on the plan, but I just think for clarity, in hindsight, I would have done that differently, but that's certainly that's on me. But I do think it's important just to make that clarity for everybody. Any questions, Tony or Nina or Peter? Did I miss anything with that?
I would just make sure that for clarity purposes, you did a good job with the graphic, but the 24.8 would make the assumption that you're dividing 125 kids by 5, and that's what you're going to have for a class size on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's not accurate. You actually have to divide that in half, and that becomes your 62 kids, and it's 62 kids divided by 5 on your A to K days, which brings it to about just over 12 students per class, and the same is true for Thursday, Friday. So the one issue that we do have is the 6th grade, because we were not able to divide that, and I think our highest number right here is about 21 right now, which is well below the class level. Not ideal, as John said, but we're working on that.
Yep.
And as late as this afternoon, we did move a student from the 6th grade, from the remote to the hybrid program because we did have room.
Yeah.
And I just think that's interesting, when you see that graph, it raises your eyebrows to think that those class sizes at 24.8, and that's not accurate. It's closer to 12, 13 on any one of those days for a Monday, Tuesday kid or a Thursday, Friday kid.
And again, there is a trade-off. There is a trade-off of someone teaching remotely. There's the difficulties with that, but there's also the trade-off with that. And so I think that's the part. And I will be honest, we've had to do some work district-wide about talking about, this isn't the time to worry about what other people are doing. We're doing the best that we can to be able to get through a pandemic. And I think we've got to keep reminding ourselves of that, is that this is new. In a lot of ways, we've been asked, however you want to phrase it, but we've been asked to create 2 different schools. We've had this remote school, which we have never really done on an official basis, and then we kind of have this medical model school where we're really, really limited. And so we're trying to combine those 2 things and try to build community. But this is certainly different and new, but this is because of a pandemic. And so there are some trade-offs, I guess is the point.
Your outline and description of the 2 kind of roles and responsibilities of a teacher in the one school versus the remote only was really eye-opening and a really helpful reminder as to the differences and the true responsibilities. We might have smaller class sizes in the hybrid model, yet these teachers are responsible for keeping everyone safe and have many more responsibilities beyond the teaching time that they would normally be doing.
Absolutely.
So it did, in my mind, no travel time, there's upside to the remote too.
Yeah.
So there's no ideal.
Absolutely. And everybody's working hard. That's like everybody is this is uncomfortable for everybody because it's new. And I think we're getting better at it every day. I really feel good about where we're coming from a week ago. I think a week and a half ago, I think people were still unsettled. And so if we did some work with Sweetser around, mental first aid, and we did some work with our administrative staff. And one of the things that Maggie Norbert talked about was that 4 to 6 week period, the mask wearing, there's a mental toll that starts to play on people, and it becomes a huge stressor. And I think that really hit for us about 2 weeks ago. I really do believe that, and that's kind of when I sent the email, like, everybody take a breath, let's just slow down a little bit. And I think we're in a much better place than we were. And frankly, I met with the principals on Monday, and knock on wood, but getting to Friday, that's an important day for us. And that's an important day to say, look, this is the first lap around the track. And we've made it, to October, and this is where we are, and this is different than we thought. And I can't tell you the number of staff members who have said, John, frankly, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that we were going to put safety first, and then all of a sudden to see it and understand, like, that's a non-negotiable for us. And to hear staff say that, to hear families say that, to have a lunch lady stop me and said, John, I was ready to take a job in June, but I love the kids, and to come back and feel like, and I feel good about. It's scary for everybody, but I just, in light of the, of where we are, I think people are in a pretty good place, much better than 2 weeks ago. So, okay. Next on my agenda is Violetta Archella, who is a Spanish teacher at Marshwood High School, is resigning for personal reasons. And so obviously it's difficult to lose a Spanish teacher. Violetta does a fantastic job in the classroom, and so we posted that position, and hopefully we'll have that soon, filled soon. Foreign language is a toughie. That's a toughie to find good people in foreign language, and Violetta was fantastic. And just unfortunately it just didn't work out, and the timing wasn't right for her, and she will certainly be sorely missed. On some positive news, there is a second round of the CRF monies. And again, just to kind of outline that, the CRF monies is money that has to be spent by December 30th. It's meant to support the COVID work that we're doing, but not supplant the work in our budget. And so there's a fine line there. So we need to continue to think about things that are appropriate for that. So staffing, there may be a couple of small staffing things that we may look at, whereas before we did some majority of that money, or not say majority, but a large portion of that money was spent for staffing. But I think really our next step is really trying to address the technology issues in the district. So I'm not a technology guru by any means, so I had to draw a picture on the wall. So there's basically 4 things that affect technology. There's kind of the signal coming into our schools from the outside, which is MSN. So there's a signal that's coming in. There's our ability to take that signal and then, through our system to be able to get it to the computers that the staff has. So there's number 2, and number 3 is the computers that the staff have, and number 4 is really the computers that the students have. And so the first one we're really trying to work on, and what we found out is that, for instance, Elliott Elementary School, the speed of the internet there is basically maybe half of what you have at your house. So it's 100 rather than 1,000. Like here at the middle school, it's 1,000 megabytes. Am I saying that right, Ryan? High school's 1,000 megabytes. Elliott Elementary School is 100. Chris Russo's house, he said, was 400. As a residential. So just to kind of give you a sense of what, so that's something that we're trying to work on, but we don't necessarily control that. So some of the conversations now have become like, staff devices. The Chromebooks are really limiting some of our staff's ability to be able to present online and some of the things that they need to do kind of in a virtual environment. So that's something that we're looking at. We're looking at some of the switches and some of the different ports that we have within the school to be able to get better service. And then we're also looking at the students' devices. And so one of the things that we purchased with the first round of CRF money is we purchased some iPads for our remote kindergartners, because those will obviously be a little bit easier to use than laptops for those students. So we're trying to find a way to leverage that money in a logical sense. I think one of the things that's pretty clear is that even as we come out of the pandemic, the use of technology, I think, is going to change education forever, and so I think we need to have this as an opportunity to be able to look at what we're doing. We're also talking about, are there ways that we can take our high school classrooms and really create better sound? Be able to, do we have an OWL system, which is kind of a camera that kind of points and follows noise within a classroom? And the OWL system itself has some issues, because I think, like, if a kid sneezes, it kind of goes to that. So we've got to find, like, there's some better systems, but just to give you a sense, those are the types of things that we're looking at. And then some kind of commonsensical things, trying to get a big monitor for every staff member to have on their desk. So, like, as they're working on the computer, there's a small screen, but if they can have the big monitor as they're kind of working with the 12 students that are remote, particularly at Marshwood High School, that would be a real thing that would help our staff. And so we've kind of really reached out to staff saying, look, if there's things that you need, what would those things be? What would they look like? And obviously we have to have it fit into the CRF rules. But those are the types of things that we're looking at. We are also looking at, kind of go back in time, but we did our work in our heating systems, and so there's kind of 3 parts to a heating system. I think I'm becoming more of a linear thinker now that I say this. Yeah, because I never used to be. But kind of the first thing is having a boiler, having a good boiler, right? And so we all of our buildings have new boilers, and so we really have those Viessmann boilers that are really good. And then at the middle school, we did some work on the computer to be able to control the boiler a little bit better, and then we did the work on the sensors that allowed the boiler and the computer to be able to communicate. So there's kind of 3 parts to it. At our elementary schools, we have the boilers, but the sensors and the computer work has not been done yet. And so as we go into winter, that's going to be critical because, as we increase airflow, it's going to be important that we're able to regulate heat appropriately and also be able to regulate airflow. And so that's one of the things that we're looking to see if we can qualify to be able to do as well. So we're just really trying to think about how do we leverage this money that makes the most sense kind of going forward as kind of, thinking of problems that may arise. The other thing that just, I don't think people think about, I do it every day and I don't even think about it, but we probably spent close to $400,000 in PPE for people across the district, whether that's gloves, masks, wipes to wipe down desks with me. As you start to add up all those things, it's extremely expensive. And I'm sure it would shock you to hear that vendors' prices have increased as demand has increased. There's a shock. And an example that I would give you is that beginning of August, we went to order 100 desks at Elliott Elementary School. We went, and the vendor, I think it was literally on a Monday, said the cost was $74.95 per desk. I mean, that's a pretty good price. And so on Friday, we went to order those, $174.95 per desk. So within that span of 5 days, the vendor had already raised kind of the price. So we run into that quite frequently. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to be pretty flexible. If we're going to do something, we need to do it quickly before everybody else starts to do it, because then obviously there's a price movement as part of that. So just to give you a sense, that's where we are with the CRF monies. Any questions? And again, I will do a presentation with that once we kind of get the first round taken care of.
Great, thank you.
The other thing I just quickly wanted to mention is I included a copy of the school board presentation outline for the year. Everybody had that in their packet. I just want to make sure that encompasses kind of the work that we wanted to do and we had talked about. I also included some of our budget workshops, just so people could start to plan ahead of what the budget season may look like. So if there's any questions or comments, that I certainly take that feedback. I can make any additions or subtractions or changes that you'd like me to make. And I try to summarize kind of our conversations around what those topics were, just to kind of give a flavor of things. I did want to do some work with where we are with our civil rights teams. I think they're doing some great work, and to bring those kids in, I think would be an important part for the board to kind of see some of the work that they're doing, and also some of our work with Jermaine. I think is really important to kind of talk to the board about kind of where we are with that as a district. So.
I don't see the SRO conversation on here. Were you just going to cover that maybe in a regular?
Yeah, so what we've done with the SRO conversation is I've asked Sue to be on the kind of the job description building committee, and what we'll do is once they have that kind of completed and we have that conversation, we'll add it to the agenda. Whenever I wasn't sure time-wise where that was going to be, so absolutely that will be part of it, yes.
Very cool.
Okay, and that's the end of my report. I just turned it over to the students to.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we don't have a lot today again, but the Internet Club is now holding regular weekly meetings, and they're partnering with the town of Hampton, and they're holding a beach dinner on Friday. And everyone who has to go is wearing masks, and they're filling out health waivers and screenings to make sure that everyone's healthy. And the Desert Sexuality Alliance has started virtual weekly meetings as well. And this year their plan is to make high school an accepting place for all students, and they're focusing on LGBTQ issues. Student government has had its first executive board meeting, and hopefully in the very near future we're going to be holding our regular weekly meetings as well. And that's all I have to say.
So, way you can hear me, right? Good. Microphone. So to kind of build on what I talked about last meeting, so students are starting to get like the use to the school and like the pathways and stuff like that. And they're gonna be testing this next week because in lunches, we're starting to assign seats. And me personally, I thought it'd be a little shaky because I have no idea where I sat the day before and where I'm supposed to sit the next day. And for remote students, we're starting to see for things like Google Meet, there's gonna be more breakout rooms. Today I actually tried out my first breakout room. It was a little shaky, got a little hard getting onto it, but it's progress. And we're also starting to see that there's a teacher brought up the idea of like a little button that you press that if you want to speak, rather than people speaking over each other and stuff like that. And for update of sports, as you guys have probably known, they were still yellow, but that's not stopping coaches from speaking out to their players and giving workouts. And they're definitely more in depth. And like, so Mr. Shane for soccer, he's posting Google Forms, so he knows like what times you're running, and so that you do run it. That's all I got.
Just two quick notes with that. I know we probably have talked about it before, but we have paid our varsity coaches. We've been asking these people to do this work for us since August. We felt like it was really important that that communication happens, and these coaches are building the relationships with these kids and providing an experience. So just so that you're aware of that, and also just all the schools will be sending out a virtual academy handbook. That basically outlines kind of some of the parameters of the virtual academy, and also kind of creates some norms around like what's an appropriate way to be a part of a classroom, and so making sure that we're addressed appropriately, like those types of things. So
Sure.
Anyway, okay, and that concludes our report.
Very good, thank you. We have had no new correspondence in the ensuing 2 weeks. Reports of the committees, Facilities and Finance will meet again at our next meeting on October 21st. Ed Policy did meet on October, what was the date? I thought I had written down.
September 27th
Sorry,
or something?
It was last Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 30th, is that right, 29th?
Maybe it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Sorry, 23rd. It was the 23rd, I
23rd.
apologize. We reviewed a block of 4 different policies. Jen and I were present, and she couldn't make it tonight. The first policy we reviewed, we don't have a use of social media by school employees policy. There is a recommended policy that we reviewed. We did tweak the wording a little bit to make it more clear that we were not asking school employees not to use social media, but rather that we wanted them to observe certain guidelines. So that's up for first read tonight. We went through the homeless students' determination of homelessness, policies, forms. There's actually a bunch of things associated with that. There have to be, I think, 4 exhibits. I think this came from a recommendation that we tweak the process that we use to make the determination.
Yep.
So that will also be up for first read tonight. We also looked at the program for English language learners. There are a couple of policies there that at least one of them still needs further work, so I don't think that's on the agenda for tonight, right?
No,
Yeah.
that's not correct.
But we want to make sure that we have that updated LAU plan as well. And then we got an MSMA suggestion about changes to the Title IX wording around harassment and sexual harassment. We had just updated these policies to include language that they're now suggesting we delete. So we're trying to get clarification from
And I believe that
council.
is in fact the case, that what we had 10 months ago is now, should be deleted.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very interesting,
So
yeah.
that'll be up at the next.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a bunch of first reads for those that I mentioned. Okay, that's the report of the committees. And that brings us to new business and those policies we just discussed. So if someone would mind motioning on social media by school employees?
I move to approve the first reading and discussion of policy use of social media by school employees, GCSE.
Was that you, Paul? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that policy is in the packet. It's a new policy.
I think what it really does is it allows us to be able to have these conversations around what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, but at the same time being mindful that we want to allow people to express themselves. So there is obviously a fine line there, but we also just want to make sure that when we talk
Sure.
Yeah.
Anybody on the board have questions? Are we ready to move to a vote? All in favor? That's 4-0. Good, thank you. That's a first read. That'll be back at our next meeting for a second read. All right, may I have a motion with regard to the program for English language learners? I misspoke earlier. The main policy is going to have a change, but the LAU plan needs some updating. Okay, thank you. Okay. Should also be in here, though I'm not laying hands on it. See if I can. Yeah, I don't have a copy of that in my packet. Did anybody else get one? Ah, thank you.
Those are all of them. Yep, they're all different policies.
Well, these are all the different ones. Thank you, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. You all have it, okay.
And these are minor changes, just with changes in the law.
There's nothing highlighted in the main section.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
The LAU, how do you say that?
LAU, LAU plan, yes,
LAU plan?
yes. Yep.
Any questions from the board? Let's move to a vote then. All in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you. How about the next one? Education of homeless students.
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy, education for the students, JFABG.
Okay, again, there weren't many markups here. There's a,
We did add an additional step, just to clarify, so that we used to have 3 exhibits, and now there's 4 exhibits. But it's just really kind of like, what's the process look like clearly, and really what's the dispute resolution look like was kind of the last part, but just trying to lay that out a little bit more clearly for families.
With the contacts on it.
Confusing about where you live versus where you want to go to school,
Yeah.
where you're homeless, but it seemed to clarify that more than.
Yeah, and typically what we do is we work together with the community. So if, we try to, although if it's our student and there's homelessness, it's technically our responsibility. Typically, the schools work together to be able to create the best plan to support the student as best we can. So.
That's good.
any other questions? All in favor? That is also 4-0. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. This is the -R associated with this policy. May I have a motion, please?
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy, education of homeless students procedure, JFABD-R.
Second.
Thank you, Paul.
I have always wondered why they put R, not -P. If
Yeah.
it's procedure, just put P, but it's -R. This I don't understand. But
What does R stand for?
I
I don't even know.
I'm sure there's a technical
The P is
definition.
silent.
Yeah, P is silent, right?
Any other questions about that? Let's move to a vote then. All in favor, please? 4-0, thank you. And now we have a series of -Es associated with this policy, which are the forms, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Motion on -E1, please?
I'll move we approve the first reading and discussion of the policy, education of homeless students, JFABD-E1.
I'll second.
Thank you. So this was updated to reflect the appropriate people, both in our district and at the state
That's
level.
correct.
Yeah, that was the main update there.
Scott Rooney is now kind of our homeless liaison, so he's, we obviously updated from Catherine. Yep.
Questions? All in favor? 4-0, thank you. And then a motion for E2, please.
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy sample housing information form, JFABD-E2.
I'll second.
Thank you. This is all marked up, so this looks like this is a new form for us, is that?
That's correct.
This, if I'm remembering correctly, this replaces the one that we
That's correct.
previously
Yeah,
used. So
yeah.
they've updated the information that's
That's
required.
correct, yeah. I believe that's a checklist that we have to, is that part of
Yes.
the
Yep.
execution of the process
Yeah.
and for the families, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Any questions about that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. 4-0. And then E3. May I have a motion, please?
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy written notification of decision JFABD-E3.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Again, this looks like it's an updated form for the notification.
That's correct.
So it's just to be better in agreement with the law,
Yep.
which is where we want to be.
Yes. I think one of the things as we kind of look back, what I like about the updated forms is that it's clear for the parents as well. So there's a very clear, like this is what qualifies as homelessness. And so sometimes as staff, as families, we use that term and there is a legal definition for that. And so it just allows that clarity to have those conversations based on the law.
Questions? All in favor? 4-0, thank you. And then E4.
I'll move we approve the first reading and discussion of the policy model local dispute resolution process. Juliet Foxtrot, Alpha Bravo Delta Dash Echo 4.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Mantra.
Yes, channeling your inner
That'll
Dan.
bring a smile to everybody's face. Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'm impressed you can still do that like that, too. That was
I know.
that was good.
I wrote it out in advance just to.
So this covers basically after you've done all of the other stuff, if there is a disagreement.
If there's a question.
This is the process for resolving it.
And this is all brand new? This,
Yeah, it's fully highlighted.
Yeah, the form's new. We have had a dispute resolution process, but this is much more in-depth. I think it has a little bit more clarity for the families.
Questions? All in favor? 4-0, thank you. These will all come back for second read in 2 weeks. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation around class size?
Of class size policy in light of COVID-19 pandemic.
I'll
Second.
second.
Which of you would like to be on record as having seconded?
She can have it.
I'll take it.
Lisa?
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, as we discussed, right, this is mainly to approve the overage in the 2 first grade classes and by extension, the underage in all of the in-person stuff.
And just in fairness, if the board decides that they want me to be able to lower those class sizes, what I would do is that I would probably create a multi-grade amongst the different schools and try to find a person to teach that position. I don't know if we could, but that would be my solution if that were the will of the board. So,
How are the first grade teachers doing? Are they okay with what they're dealing with right now?
I mean,
That's a thumb up there?
yeah.
Okay, that would be my main concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I asked before, how are the teachers feeling?
Yeah. Okay.
If they're
Any other
okay.
questions? All in favor? 4-0. We're getting close to the end. May I have a motion around the net energy billing credits, please?
I'll
I
move we
move
approve the authorization and purchase of net energy billing credits.
I'll second.
And Sue will second.
Can I just allow Ryan to explain?
Yes,
why
please,
it's-
by all
why that's-
means.
Why it's back on the,
So we already did this motion, I don't know if you recall, to approve this, for John and I to negotiate the final agreement. But we sent the agreement to John and Woodson's legal counsel, and they recommended that, I believe there's a page motion attached, so you should have that in your documents.
Yeah.
You know. So that motion includes some additional language that we didn't have in our original motion. What that basically says is that these agreements are somewhat speculative, like it's not, guaranteed that they're gonna be able to provide the energy credits. It's a 20-year term. So she just wanted to make sure, our legal counsel wanted to make sure that additional language is there, that the board was aware that that was the case before. And so this is the final approval. I have the agreement on my desk. John's gonna sign it tomorrow.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where we said, we think we already did that, and they said, we really think you should take it back to the board again and make it really clear again. So we said, okay, well, we'll follow your advice then, that's what you're there for, so.
What's the concern? Is there a particular concern?
I think what they just don't want people to say is, hey, wait a second, you guaranteed us that we were gonna get X amount of money and we didn't get that. I think they're basically saying like, this is speculation. This is, they're basing this on numbers. There's a certain degree of risk that we can't say it's gonna save you $10,000 or it might save you $40,000. So I think they want to just be clear that it is speculative.
However, that's the intention.
Yeah, right, exactly. And we did have, Charlie Agnew come and explain that to everybody.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
did that conversation. I think that was very clear. But
Okay.
they wanted to protect the district, and we said, okay, we'll do that. Thank you. We did, just for clarity too, we did join, I'm going to use the word, a group or consortium around this this topic. And so there's 8 or 9 different groups that have kind of come together in this solar project, and so we share the legal costs with everybody. So it is a way to save a little bit of money, but we're all kind of in this together using Dromino with some, with AGA. So that is a good thing. Just so we're clear.
Any other questions? All in favor? That's also 4-0. It's a harmonious group tonight. Okay, that concludes the new business. Principals, administrators, anybody have anything they want us to know about?
Sure, we've been, lots of things going on, but 2 things I wanted to share is we usually have our Monster Mile. This month is the big fundraiser that our PTO does a fantastic job that we raised $30,000 last year. So this year our PTO has done an amazing job that we're the Monster Mash. We're not going to run, but the kids are going to slowly dance in their cohorts outside, and we're still going to have a DJ. And so they're just putting a new spin on it. And we've already raised money we had the mascot, and our PTO went to every classroom and got the kids really excited remote. And so I'm just so thankful for our PTO for running with this new idea. The other really exciting thing this week is that we're starting to get, thanks to everyone, we're getting our codes for our Lucy Calkins virtual lessons, that if there's any silver linings, there are tons of silver linings, but this one's huge, where every single teacher, remote and in person, is able to have Lucy Calkins remote codes, which is our quick reading, writing, and phonics curriculum. So it's the experts are teaching, that you can watch an expert from the teacher's college teaching the lessons, and you can teach alongside the person. You can, it's a huge gift. So just thank you for that.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you.
Just to extend my thanks and appreciation to the board and the administrative team for all the support that they've provided me with over the last few weeks, and my transition to Elliott, which is just wonderful. Great school community. I would just share a couple of things. Our priority, as you know, has been student and staff safety, but the staff have done an outstanding job in role modeling for students, distancing and keeping attention to hygiene. They've done a terrific job with that. I'd also say thank you for the tents, outdoor education. What a gift to the kids. I observed a librarian experiment using leaves today with the kids. They were so excited and engaged in the lesson. It was great. And finally, I would just celebrate and praise the teamwork that I've observed between teachers, both the in-person teachers and the remote teachers. The remote teachers have been terrific in sharing their experiences with the in-person teachers who are getting a little nervous about a potential transition. but feeling much more confident after receiving that tutoring by the remote teachers. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Pete, you stole a bunch of the things I was going to say. But I remember, I think it was in August, I hope I didn't offend the board, but I said something to the effect that you guys didn't have a clue of what the summer was like with all the things that were going on. And I was, I know that I was nervous, and I'm sure that everyone else was nervous. It has gone, knock on wood, it has gone so well. All those decisions we made, and the school is upside down. I mean, kids don't come to the cafeteria goes to the kids, and just everything outside. It is, and the camaraderie that has gone on between everybody, it is just phenomenal. And on our sign outside at the Great Work School, it says something like, we've got, we're learning outdoors. Heidi came in yesterday and she said, Jerry, where are your kids? There's not a kid in the building. Because they would, honestly, we are really, whether it is, two classes today went off campus. They were off 3 hours, and they went on a hike out back and did all, stream studies and things like that. So it has just been phenomenal. And then I reached in my pocket as I was sitting here, and this little guy came by the office today. I was doing dismissal, and he said, Mr. Bennell, take this. And this is a little guy that I've seen a couple of times, okay? A couple of bus issues. Yeah, I've just seen a couple of times, just a sweetie. And he just said, I love it, to Mr. Bennell, I love this school so much. And I just thought, so things are going really well. Thanks.
Wow, that's great.
Can I just share one thing real quick? Monday was one of those days where you kind of feel the weight of the world as you kind of walk into school. And I pulled up to Marshwood High School, just kind of knowing that there's some stuff out there that we need to take care of. And I walked in, and I would say it even if he wasn't here, but David was outside, and he had maybe 12 kids that were in the band out on the front lawn playing. And he had a setup similar to this. I wasn't sure what was going on in his desk. And then I looked over, and he had another 12 kids playing the musical instruments online with the kids that were playing it outdoors. And that, you say to you, like, it honestly, it lightened the load that I felt that day. And it brings a tear to your eye to think about, like, how creative staff members have become to find a way to include kids, to try to build culture in a pandemic setting. And then just going above and beyond and saying, like, how do we make this work? And not saying it's that can-do mindset rather than the, of reasons why it wouldn't be successful. And I don't think, David probably thought twice about it, because I think he did the same lesson the next day, and it went well again. But, like, for me to see that, it just makes you realize the importance of the work that we're doing. And it goes beyond math and science and social studies. It's about building communities, about giving these kids that mental first aid that they need. So I just, David, I appreciate that, and it was something that I wanted to share. So thanks.
Folks, I don't have a whole heck of a lot more to say than what was already said. Peter, I appreciate you coming up there with handwritten notes, and I remember when I first came to the district, Jerry used to make fun of me because I used to bring a 3-ring binder with me with all my stuff, and he said, you won't do that for long, so you won't do that for long, But again, I'll keep saying this, folks, thank you for your trust in us, and I really, honest to goodness, I'm going to keep saying that at these meetings, this is not easy work, this has been hard work, and you've had to trust a lot of the decisions we've made. Thank you to the central office as well. We continue to make decisions, and we continue to work with our staff. It's not ideal, where our remote academy is right now, and I understand that. But, as John said earlier, we're working on it, and they feel that we're working on it. We know that we have some tools out there. We just have to work out the best that we possibly can. Remember to stay fiscally responsible, and that's important too. But we're trying to make everybody safe. That's what's important. But please just continue to believe in us. We're taking good care of your babies out there. I promise you that. We're going to get there, and we're working with our staff. We believe in them, and we're taking damn good care of them as well, and we'll continue to do that. So if we just continue to hold hands through this all, we're going to make it. And there's some good stuff happening out there, a lot of good silver linings. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gratian. We don't often see you at board meetings, and you've been forced to sit through this entire one. Thank you for setting this up for us. Much appreciated.
He's a DJ today.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I guess that's me after faults too. I move we adjourn this meeting.
I think I'd have to second at this point. Yeah, lost all the new people.
All in favor? That is 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I feel like the next meeting I should make the motion to adjourn.
Yes, you should.